This review has been on the hold up for over a year at this point, but it feels so good to know that we're finally all able to see it. Directed and written once more by John Krasinski, and once more starring Emily Blunt, Millicent, Simmonds, and Noah Jupe, with the new addition of Cillian Murphy. This is my long overdue review of A Quiet Place, Part 2. Directly following the events of the first film, the Abbott family now faces the terrors of the outside world as they're forced to venture into the unknown, soon to realize the creatures that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sand path. As a huge fan of the original film, I was so excited for this film, and I'm equally as excited to finally be able to talk about it with you guys. But before I dive into my thoughts, let me know how excited you are for A Quiet Place Part 2. How do you like the original film? Start the conversation in the comments below. It's the most important part, and while you're down there, consider clicking the subscribe button if you haven't. If you're new to the channel, it does wonders to get my content out there, and you'll always be aware of whenever I upload more great content. Much like the first film, Krasinski's direction is excellent. He's able to constantly generate tension throughout the entire film. From the get-go, we already start at a high level of tension because we already understand the basics of this world. We've set up what it means for these people to leave the house, for these people to get off the sand path and walk in this ground that might make some noise. And starting from that high place of tension not only puts you already at the edge of your seat from the get-go, but it naturally raises the stakes already because we know right now what the stakes are. Soon enough, they meet a new person, a new character to this film that is explained when we see some flashbacks about how all this started, which I'm not going to get into, but from then, the story then diverges into two stories. This film really is two stories. It's about Millicent Simmonds and Cillian Murphy, who are having this nomadic story, let's describe it as that, and we have Emily Blunt, Noah Jupe, and the newborn baby. They're much more stationary, and the film interweaves these two stories so seamlessly and effortlessly that it just works. As soon as the tension is rising in another one, we meet the other story and raise the tension on that one, and it just goes up and up and up. The use and raising of tension in this film truly cannot be overstated, not only because it is using it so well, but it is using it in two places, two stories at different times, and how they parallel each other builds up to some of the most tense climatic sequences I have seen in quite some time, perhaps ever since that first film. Truly satisfying, and how the film uses all these elements that it establishes, builds up, and truly pays off miraculously is astounding to watch. Millicent Simmonds continues to astonish. This is her film, by the way. She is clearly the main character in this film, and given what she came off in the last film, her journey continues, and the thematic nature of this film is really heavy. It's very compelling and very emotional, and I really do love seeing her do what she does in this film. Cillian Murphy as well continues to prove he's one of the most underrated actors working today. He is phenomenal working off of Millicent, and their chemistry really works throughout this film, as well as Emily Blunt. She's an utter badass in this film, and because we already know the dangers of this world, her story really works. She now has this new goal to protect this baby, and she cannot leave this place. But as the film properly sets up, a lot of danger is surrounding this one place that is not safe. Then we have the other story where characters are just out in the wild and we don't know what happens then. And that works really well to expand our understanding of the world and the lore of this franchise, and it's really, really great, I think, what they do with that, because we keep having what we know about this world in Emily Blunt's story, and then we expand it with Millicent Simmonds and Cillian Murphy. The sound design in this film is just flawless. It's fucking immaculate. When you follow Millicent Simmonds, sometimes the sound fades out and you just see through her perspective in complete silence. And it's eerie, it's creepy, it's extremely suspenseful. And then the film works really well in some scares when it brings the sound back in, or sometimes it does the other way around, where we have sound and suddenly, boom, it changes as no sound is heard whatsoever. The building of suspense and tension throughout this film is really stellar and really shows the simple, effective ways of pulling something like this off. Because at the core of this story, there are a lot of compelling, emotional, very human themes. You have a mother trying to protect both her sons, but especially the one who has just been born, and it's kind of uncontrollable. And then you have this little girl out in the open who wants to prove herself, make her father proud. And so these stories truly complement each other. The stationary story, the nomadic story, and the parallels that it raises. And the film comes to an incredible crescendo in both of them. It is thematically a very heavy and dark film, dealing with loss and how it blends in these very human, compelling foundations with this fantastic skin with aliens and monsters and all that, blending in some physically demanding action sequences which are just fantastic to watch. This film never fails to have those same core elements that made the first one so good, and it just expands on them. It's not quite as good as the first. Take into consideration that first one for me is either perfect or as close to it as it gets. This one has two small issues that I had with the film. There's a new element that is presented and shows up in one scene but almost has no impact on the story. It feels like they sprinkled it in here to set up that spin-off they were going to get with Jeff Nichols. Another one is that at some point these two stories almost feel detached. They belong in the same film, they belong in the same movie, but because we get no mention of one of the stories in the other, they completely feel like they're parting ways and are almost unrelated. The tension is still there, the compelling elements are still there because we know these people are related, but it comes to a point where they are completely separated, and I guess that could be the point, but to me, I wish there were just a bit more conversation between Millicent Simmonds and Cillian Murphy about what is going on with Emily Blunt, or the other way around. A Quiet Place Part 2 feels truly like a seamless continuation of the genesis of the first film. It continues to astound in terms of its characters, its themes, its sound design, and continues to show the prowess of John Krasinski as a storyteller. With jaw-dropping performances, brilliant world building, and just a master class for the entire runtime in how to build tension, this one did not disappoint. I'm giving A Quiet Place Part 2 an A. Now, how excited are you for A Quiet Place Part 2? I want to thank Paramount Pictures UK for allowing me the opportunity to see this again. I'm so excited to finally be able to talk about it, for you all to finally see it, and I cannot wait to know your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. You are the best. Stay tuned for many more reviews to come throughout this week. I hope to see you in those, and so until then, love each other and love the movies.